Cab Sav?
Yes, Hut 11. Yes.
Ooh, Hut 11.
Hut 11.
Ooh.
McLaren Vale actually does
Beautiful.
make some great Cab Sav, doesn't it?
McLaren Vale is produces some terrific Cabernet Sauvignons.
Yeah.
It's just a variety which I guess is influenced by the Mediterranean environment here.
Yeah.
It's got enough coolness to get some varietal character. So Cabernet is a variety that needs to have a bit of coolness at night time to try and bring out that lovely cassis type of characters.
Don't talk it up too much because we are going to come down to the Coonawarra, remember?
Oh,
So
yeah.
we can't really go too
But
crazy.
it's a different style though. It uses
Yeah,
this
that
is a kind of originality.
actually.
Thank you very much.
Paws are getting bigger, sorry. But
Thank you.
That's a taste and a half, isn't
yeah,
it?
we've got lots to talk about with
That's
it.
right. Right.
This is beautiful. So essentially, is it growing in the same soil, that sort of stuff, than all the others? Or,
So this is different. Yeah. So our hut block is about 1 kilometre through this way
On the McMurtry Road?
on McMurtry Road.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
McMurtry.
the McMurtry Mile?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of wines coming from the vineyard. In fact, we've got several wines coming from that vineyard. This particular site, though, is a reasonably sandy site. It's a bit unusual,
Okay.
bit unusual for growing
Okay.
Cabernet on sandy soil. But this particular block, we call it Hut 11 because it's that's what we call the block, Hut 11. So that's what the block's name is, and
Yeah.
just like
So
any
it's
name, that's what's there. So,
Okay.
so Hut 11 is a new release for us. We've had our Hut Block Cabernet, which has been very, very popular over a long period of time.
Okay.
But that's been sourced from separate vineyards, and this is more of an individual vineyard wine.
Okay,
There's a
so not
selection.
from the same lot. So then you bring the
It's
Hut 11
it is a selection from that individual
a
vineyard.
bit of blend. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so this is
The
our
colour's
first
gorgeous.
release. Again, yes.
This is the
Again?
first release?
The first release of Hut 11.
Yeah, right.
Ah.
And you mentioned, obviously, it's different in McLaren Vale than to the Coonawarra.
Yes.
Well, what's the difference?
Difference? Well, at this time of year, we're about halfway through our Coonawarra harvest right now.
Yeah.
Whereas we've picked the equivalent this year 3 to 4 weeks ago. So it's a later vintage in Coonawarra. It's a bit cooler.
Yeah.
And
What's the difference in the wine?
difference in wines. In McLaren Valley, you probably get a bit more initial fullness on the wine, whereas in Coonawarra there's a little bit more austerity, perhaps, which lends itself for really long-term aging, but some approachability as well. It's a different. It's like anything. It's a sense of place. It's a different characteristic. But this is look. I've done a lot of tastings in McLaren Vale of various wines of Shiraz and Cabernet, and Cabernet is a variety which does show a lot of diversity in the region, where it's you see producers producing it from various parts of the region, and it's one variety which does show a lot of sense of place that I was talking about before. That sense of a characteristic which is probably associated with that particular vineyard site.
Okay.
All right, so
Very
colour-wise,
unique. That colour is beautiful.
Yep.
Very deep, very dark.
hang on, I've got to
Yeah.
do it properly.
You're good to do it against the.
Yeah,
Yes. Now you've learned that skill.
Yeah, I haven't I? Actually, Jill taught me that skill a while ago. I just forgot. So colour-wise,
Yep. Colour-wise is quite deep. It's got some nice crimson colours to it.
it's very deep, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. It's dark, deep, and it grips the glass nicely, but not too much.
What are we smelling?
Yeah. Well, unlike the Grenache, which didn't have any new oak at all, this has got a little bit of
A little bit more of an oaky tone
bit
to
of
it, doesn't
bit
it?
of influence
Yes.
of a bit of new
Yes.
oak, and that's going to lend itself to really developing some lovely cedar characteristics. If you've got the patience to mature it for 4 or 5 or 6 or maybe 10 years
That was
time.
going to be my question. How long would you lay it
How
out for?
long?
Oh, it's got the texture and the depth and the fruit and all the ingredients to put it down for 10 years. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Wait, that's
Oh,
that
there you
nice
go.
Southern American, but
But not too big. It's not a huge one as such. It's got some elegance to it.
that's actually kind
structure.
of, but the look of it
That
and the
threw
smell
me.
of it,
That threw me.
I was expecting a lot bigger wine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I
It's got some
expected it
elegance,
to
yeah.
grip straight away, and it just sat really easily, didn't it, on the palate?
Yeah, and
Yeah. I
not
was
as tannic
expecting
as I
that
thought
really
either.
bold. No.
Again, it's about building up the wine. A bit of, some of the things we might do with Grenache, we do with Cabernet as well. We build it up rather than take it out. And
That was surprising. From the colour of it, you expect this real deep grip, and it just doesn't.
Yeah.
It's got the flavour through it, but it
it's
doesn't
good.
have the grip.
And that's a characteristic of all our wines, I hope, that they aren't, if you're looking for really big, heavy wines, you can go to anywhere in the Barossa, they'll produce you those really big, voluptuous, sweet fruit wines. The style that we're trying to produce is something with a bit of elegance, a bit of style, that will age well, and also is able to be approached as a young wine.
Yeah. That's the key, isn't
Wow.
it?
Yeah.
Good to drink now,
Yeah,
better to
ready
drink
to
when they're
go.
laid
Exactly.
down.
Yeah, and if you do have the right strong properties, sit
Yeah.
them
You'd have to
for
buy a
little
few though.
while.
It's that good, you'd have to buy a few.
You would.
wouldn't
Oh, yeah.
And you'd want to try it in different stages, I think. It'd be one of those ones where you'd open it fresh and then you'd keep it for a little while and then you keep it for a little longer and try it in 3 different stages and it would probably be completely different wines
Yes,
as you
So
go
you'd have to
through.
buy 6. Marketing would tell
Yeah,
you to buy
that's it.
12
Yeah.
because it's
Gotta buy
better
half
than
a
shit.
dozen.
But
That's
and
it.
drink a couple now,
Yeah.
save a few
Save
for
a
a few
couple
years.
and then save
Yeah.
a few
Yeah.
more.
And you know what I always reckon is pretty cool? If you drink it with the same people. So
Yeah.
if you've
So
got
then
a
you've got
guest
that
that comes
comparison.
around and
Yeah.
then pull it out a few years later,
Bring
if
it
your
out
friends
at dinner
hang
parties.
if your friends hang around that long.
That's
but
right. That means you're going to behave yourself for a longer time too. So you don't lose that.
yeah, that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah,
Okay.
easier said than done. So
Yeah.
what would your pairing pick be with the this little number?
Ooh, I don't know.
Well, you got to go first.
Well, see again,
And
I'm
can
on
you
cheeses.
can you please put some effort in because your last
Oh,
one
oh,
was
come on, all right.
your last one
Well,
was
I won't lowball it
your
this
last
time.
one was poor.
Oh, look.
Not pear. We won't.
Well, we're not hitting the fruits with the reds.
No.
That's not my jam.
Okay,
So
come on, what are you
let's
gonna
move
go?
on to a little bit of cheese, I think. Maybe a little bit of pate, something like that, a little bit of flavour.
Okay.
Right.
So you,
We pick one, not all 3. Which one are you going to go?
I think we're going to hit the, let's do a little bit of blue cheese. How you feeling about the blue?
I'd be saving that for the Shiraz, but
Oh,
no, you're
would you?
no, you're right.
Would you? Full flavour with the Shiraz? I just thought he's looking a little
What would you go for?
unused there.
What would I go for?
What would be your pick?
I reckon the Met West.
think so?
Yeah.
Oh, you reckon a little bit of meat there, do you?
I would have another go at the pate.
Oh,
All right, let's go.
let's do
There's
it.
the 3 choices.
Each to their own.
Yep.
Sure.
Now, would you prefer a biscuit or a piece of bread?
So if you get each other's, you just see yourself on what you choose, and then we can all say we all
Done.
get the best choice.
Done.
Yeah, true.
Well, I'm going to go with one of these, and I'm going to hit a little bit of the cheese and a little bit of the jelly.
What is the jelly? Do you reckon it's quince? Quince
Quince
paste?
paste.
I don't know. You didn't talk it up.
That's another thing that's great this year, quinces.
Is
You
it?
know how Quince Street Home is just full of these lovely round balls of yellow fruit hanging on the tree. It's just a.
Is it hard
it's
to
just
make the paste?
We tend to
What do you do with them?
just dry them out, make the paste. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
You can
okay.
just dehydrate them.
We'll grab some when we're down the Coonawarra.
Quince jelly, quince, just stewed quinces. Now, quinces roasted with a Sunday roast with a bit of lamb, and you get the quince and you roast it in with the potatoes and other things. It's just magnificent.
We know where to go Sunday night. We'll invite ourselves like we usually do, but yeah.
Yeah.
There'll only be 4 of us.
Did you want a little bit of that?
That's full of flavour. That's
Oh, you only
probably
served
gonna
yourself?
overpower. I did.
Right, okay.
I did.
No, don't worry about us.
Do you want me to be
Yeah,
off
no.
Hold on.
You can
get
all
a bit-
take your pick.
It's getting a bit selfish.
And what was the choice? A bit of blue?
Now I've gone with a little bit of blue. Now this is probably overpowering the taste. I'd stick with more of the cheese than a little paste here.
Nice a bit of paste as well.
Full
No
of
paste.
flavour, almost
Straight
too
cheese,
much.
I reckon.
Yeah. That one takes away from the actual
Yeah.
flavour of the wine, I think.
Which is a strong blue.
It is.
Is it?
I love my blue.
Oh. I'm looking forward to the wine.
See the quince
Oh.
paste there through the taste, but I think with a little bit more cheese that would have been nice. You're a meat fan?
It goes
You're
well.
going to hit the Matt West, aren't you?
It does give that creaminess in the palate, which sort of softens the tannins in the wines a bit. It really sort of ameliorates the palate.
Too strong.
But I'm a bit of you. I think
strong?
that with an aged
Yeah.
wine might be a bit better.
I think so. You know what that would go really well with? Fortified.
Yes, fortified.
Something that could overpower that cheese is strong. I'm going to go. What was your choice? The pate?
And my choice was a little bit of bread and pate. And it's just something
Let's go.
simple.
Let's go
Bit
there.
of
Shall I try?
pate.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's too much to choose on this platter.
Jay, do you want my fingers? Okay.
No,
I'm
go
sorry.
for gold.
I washed my hands yesterday. I'm sure.
We're all serving each other, it's fine.
Thank you. not only do you have to make the wine, you've also got to prepare the food for it.
Oh, that's right.
You know.
It's just a hard life. Isn't it?
Yeah, isn't it? This pate is so good, isn't it? And I reckon this is going to be the perfect pairing.
It's a bit like the cheese. It's got that creamy type of texture to it, which helps sort of
That
balance off
creamy
those
tone
things.
really takes off that bite
Yeah.
at the end, doesn't it? Okay, good pairing. I like that one. Still takes away a little bit of the flavour of the wine. There's so much flavour in that pate.
Right, let's try the Metwurst. No biscuit, no nothing, just straight Metwurst.
Go with your original.
Yeah.
Go with your original
You
choice.
can see that.
We'll go halves, all right?
I was
We
about to say that.
we
Do you
don't
wanna
need
go
a whole.
halves?
No, we don't need a whole piece. There you go.
Oh, great, thank you.
Oh. Quality, quality Metwurst. I already know it's going to be the best one.
I think you've got this.
I may have read Paul's tasting notes before I came, but
It goes with that slightly charry oak you get from the oak. You know,
Yeah,
That there's a bit of a joke. And when they make
Cheers to
barrels,
that.
yeah,
Well done.
when they form the barrel, they use a heat to try and get the barrel to bend, and so that heat then, depending on the level of heat they use, can create a little bit of charriness inside the barrel. So that's then imparts
So there's a little bit of
some
charred
character,
charcoal
yeah.
taste.
And depending on the cooper and so forth, that also caramelises some of the sugars that are in the oak, and that just imparts a bit more characteristic to the wine.
so what oak are we using for these?
These are French barrels.
Yeah.
It's from a
New barrels, old barrels?
it's about 20% new French barrels, and
Bit of a mid-range.
we're using this particular one was from a producer called Gudu, and Gudu is we found over the years that's been very well suited towards this particular wine that we're making. So it's a
So you're picking the barrel to suit the wine?
yeah, I'm thinking barrels of the wine. So
That's
we
pretty cool.
There's so
Yeah.
much that
We'd learn it like
Oh, I
so
know.
so we buy barrels sort of from various coopers each year. So and
Yes.
there are quite a few different coopers,
Mhm.
and each cooper has got different toasting techniques and different techniques. For example, one of our major suppliers, rather than solely using the fire to make the wood able to bend, they immerse it in hot water first, and that leaches out some of the really raw tannins from the oak, and then they fire out afterwards.
Wow.
So you end up with a very sort of subtle
That's
influence of oak, and we use that on some varieties like sort of Chardonnay and so forth.
So,
Who are they? Give them a shout out.
That particular variety, that particular barrel is Dargle and Jogle, is our one that we've used.
Where are they?
They're in Burgundy in France.
In France? Yeah.
right. So when it comes to pairing your barrels with your wines, things like that, how do you successfully pick a barrel that's going to bring out the best in the wine that you're choosing and things like that? So what's the process there?
Well, it involves two elements. One which I'm very good at, and that's procrastination and indecisiveness. But really, the reality is that when we buy barrels, we choose several wines, and we use a pair of barrels of every cooper that we buy in one particular batch of wine, and then we assess those as individual barrels. We over the 18 months or 24 months that the wine's maturing. Now, in doing that, we then handle those as individual barrels each time. So rather than actually, imagine that during the life of a wine, that a wine needs to be worked a couple of times to give a bit of roundness, a bit of oxygen into the wine to give it, soften off the tannins and help evolve the wine. But and so you might have a batch of say 40 barrels of a batch. With our assessment, we'll handle all those as individual barrels, so it's a lot of work.
That
Now
sounds
let's
labour
talk about an
intensive.
index for those.
But
yeah.
then at the end of that period of time, then we'll start to say, well, look, this wine, this barrel, firstly, this barrel's good,
Yes.
and so we've got down to that stage now where all the barrels that we're using are very good
Okay,
coopers.
so you like that barrel?
So-
Keep that one
so-
around.
So we don't have any duds, but we have, but then we're working towards that with each of our wines that we have one or maybe two coopers that we're trying to direct it, so that it creates an individuality between the barrels
Between the actual
and the wine
barrels
as
and the
well. So
actual
help-
wine that they're producing.
It helps sort of
Well, that's-
on the pedigree.
That
Now,
is unbelievable. See, it's
Yeah.
so technical once you get into it.
now, we're not quite there yet. We're still working towards it. But as I said, in 150 years' time, I know the
It
answer.
takes a lot of experience, but
Right.
you get better and better by the year.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's,
What a cracking wine.
This is beautiful, and I'm sad to finish it, but I think
Yeah.
we might have to move on to
Yeah,
the,
we're gonna have to move on to McLaren Vale's
I don't want
finest.
to next.
Went down alright, didn't it?
Oh, it did.
Yeah, it went down
Almost too
alright.
easily that one. Yeah.
So we're gonna have to move on to. We're gonna move to top of the range.
I'm
Top
excited.
of the range
I'm
Shiraz.
excited for this one.